I also will say that the air conditioner upstairs is going, so it's possible that's making an issue too. All right, so here we go with our bowl, and here's our coffee filter. If you put the coffee filter in the bowl first, and then add a couple of your M&Ms, just gonna put 3 in. Whoop, spilling M&Ms everywhere. Let's see. Okay, so, and then you're gonna pour in your water again. Don't pour in too much water for this, because you're gonna let your M&Ms dissolve once again and get their color all over your water, and then gently with your fingers or with a pair of tweezers, pick out the M&Ms. Then I want you to take this whole thing and put it in the sun, somewhere nice and warm, because we want the water to evaporate off of our coffee filter to leave the color behind. And here's the thing. If you decide to just try and pull your coffee filter out, let's see, you're gonna see, look, the dye moves, or the color rather moves with the water. It doesn't stay with your coffee filter. So you have to evaporate the water, let the water go off into the air so that you can get your pretty colors to stay on your coffee filter. Now, you might be wondering, why does that happen? Is that any better? Is the sound better? Audio doesn't seem to be working at all. Are we hearing anything? Now the buzz is, okay. So tell me, is the buzzing gone and you can hear me, I hope? I'm crossing my fingers. Okay. So what was I saying? All right, you don't have to use water. This is where it gets fun. Again, you can test warm water, versus cold water and see if that makes a difference. But you can also try other liquids. For example, this is the same M&Ms, and they've actually been sitting in here for about half an hour. I put them in baby oil or mineral oil, and you'll see none of that color left the outside of the M&M. And that's because, remember how I said that they're all covered with wax? That wax is what keeps them from melting in your hand. Well, oil and wax are very similar. And so the oil is not able to dissolve that outside wax and release the dye into it. So that's really fun. You could try different types of cooking oils, perhaps. On the other hand, let's see. Okay, got a little bit mixed up as I was bringing it over, but this one is actually isopropyl alcohol, like you'd use to clean cuts or to clean surfaces, and it did quite the job of dissolving the inks. And in fact, yeah, it did an even better job than water. But you could see that see the little pellets of the color? So what I would encourage you to do as another experiment is to get your M&Ms into the bowl and then try things like milk and vinegar and different liquids from around the house, with mom and dad's permission, of course, and see which ones can dissolve the coat on the M&M and which ones can't do that. So that's a really fun experiment, because you might be surprised what things can dissolve that coat and which can't. And it all has to do with that wax layer. Okay, so some things can dissolve the wax layer and some can't. And I want you to think about maybe what the commonalities are between the things that can dissolve that layer and the things that can't. So if you do that, I want to hear about it. I want to hear what kinds of experiments you do. All right, let's talk for a second about dyes versus pigments. And I have an example. Okay, here's an example I did. In this case, this is a dye. I just took where's it go? So I've got a lot of items today that I'm working with. so all I did is I took a plate, I put a coffee filter on it, and I took a water-soluble marker, and I just drew a circle in the center. You could pour water on this, I found. It's a little easier to spray, so I'm just spraying. And you can see the dye starts to run and spreads out. And what you find after a little bit, let me zoom out a bit for you guys here, is that you get lots of different colors. Like you can see that there's blue in that black marker. You can see over here there's some red. Can you see that red that comes out? And that's because that dye is made of many different dyes, and we're actually spreading them out by using the coffee filter. This coffee filter has tiny little holes, and each dye is slightly different in size, and so it can move further and further away from where it started. And as it does, as it spreads out, it actually separates the different colors. So that's pretty neat to see, and it's a lot of fun to do. If you like this, one of my Family Maker Camp videos that I'll post in the comments actually shows you how to use this technique to make a really cool t-shirt. Meanwhile, this is just a little bit of washable paint, okay? And all I did the exact same thing. Got myself a plate. Sorry, dropped my filters. I'm off camera, but I dropped my filters. Got myself a nice little coffee filter, and I just put a little bit of paint. Ooh, that was probably more than the paint that I needed. You spread that out, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing, just spray it with a bit of water. And you can see you get a very different result, don't you? So you can see here, it's all basically the same color. You don't see as much of a separation in color with dyes. And part of that is because, with pigments. This is a pigment. Pigments are much bigger particles to make colors. Dyes are really tiny. So this pigment can't move as well, and I got some extra paint here, but this pigment can't move as well through the coffee filter like the dye can. So you don't get as much of that separation. All right, so that's really fun. Try different things around the house. Try different paints, try different pens, try just different markers, and see if you can get them to separate like a dye, or if you just kind of get a bit of a puddle like you do with a pigment. Okay, and that will tell you which kind of colorant they're using in that, whether it's a dye or a pigment. The other cool thing that you can try. Here we go. There's my water. All right, so I have two identical cups here, putting a bit of water in each one. Now, when I put a little bit of food coloring, that's a dye, into my liquid, my water, you can see it disperses. It becomes a solution. It dissolves into the water, and that will very soon dissolve very nicely into the water. But if I take my paint, oh good, thank you Jim for letting me know that the sound's going. If I put a little bit of paint in, look what happens. You get some dispersion, but most of it just sits there on the bottom. That's because a lot of pigment molecules are big, and therefore they're more dense than the water, and they fall to the bottom. A lot of paints have what we call a dispersal agent in them that help the big clumps of pigment spread out into the liquid so you can use them, but they're much harder to get them to dissolve. They aren't as soluble as a dye is. They don't go into a solution into water as easily as a dye does. And that's a big difference between pigments and dyes too. I have a picture I want to show with you, so I'm going to do that right now. Let's see. There we go. So if you look at this picture, let's see if my mouse is showing up. I know it's got lots of fancy words on here, but I just wanted you to see that pigment molecules are big, okay? And sometimes they're multiple particles all stuck together. Whereas dye molecules tend to be smaller, so they can move through things like the coffee filter in water much more easily than a pigment can. Okay, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like pointing this out wrong. A dye, therefore, will actually spread out and become transparent and become dissolved in its liquid, in its solute, in its solvent. Whoops, big science mistake there. So the dye will become transparent in its solvent, in this case water, whereas our pigment will kind of spread out and disperse, but it won't truly dissolve into our liquid. And that's another big difference between pigment and dye. Which brings me to our final question today. Coming back to our friend the M&M. Oh dear, wrong Sorry about that. I'm having a lot of issues with my camera. My camera is very grumpy today, and I don't know why. Okay, so just real quick, one last time, because I'm going to put them real close together this time, see what happens. Oh, no, but I didn't do a good job pouring my water in. So I want to ask you, which do you think we have here? Do we have an example in our M&M of a pigment, or do we have a dye? And how can we tell the difference? I would love for you guys to answer me in the comments if you have some ideas. So we see, okay, we see this dissolving, and luckily the fine folks at M&Ms figured out a way to make that wax just thin enough so that water can get through, and especially in the heat of your mouth. And if we see that the color is staying towards the bottom, right? That means that color is heavier, more dense than the water. So that should give you a big hint as to whether or not we're talking about a pigment or a dye when it comes to our M&Ms. So I will leave you guys to decide that one, and I'll post the answer in the comments. All right. That is basically our our Friday steam today. Sorry for all the technical issues, and I'm sorry that I was a little bit rattled as a result. Let's hope I didn't make too many mistakes during this, right? Okay, so just real quick, you can always find all of our great events for the Warren County Library online at warrenlib.org. Our event calendar has a ton of great stuff on it. We will be mostly online for now and for probably most of the summer, but that doesn't mean that we can't have fun together. We have story times, we have anime and all kinds of different clubs. We have book clubs. We have Friday Steam on Fridays. We have Maker Monday on Monday. And starting June 15th, when summer reading starts, we have even more coming. It's going to be really exciting. We're using a cool new app called Beanstack for all of our summer reading. So even though we can't be together in the library right now, you can still read and earn prizes all through summer reading. And we've got a lot of great ways for you to earn cool badges too. So definitely keep an eye on that and check out our website. You want to make sure that you check into our Facebook account regularly because we stream all kinds of great things there. Adult crafts, obviously my stuff, and the story times. We had a really great video with one of our local vets. So make sure that you keep on checking out there. We have some great entertainers coming up this summer, and they will be streaming over Facebook. Now, if you miss a live stream, you can usually find it on Facebook under videos, or you can check out our YouTube station. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can see all the backups of all of our great videos anytime you want. You can go and binge all the Friday Steam at once, right? And last but not least, if you do these projects, I created a Padlet. And parents, Padlet is a way for kids to share pictures and thoughts about what they're doing with Maker Monday and Friday Steam in a safe place that's moderated by me. So only those posts that I allow in are allowed to be seen. So it's a nice safe place for you to be able to share your work. I've included all the videos there too, and I would love to see what you guys are creating. So you can use the Padlet to share your work, and you can also comment kindly and positively on other people's work, and you can give them a little heart if you think that what they're doing is great. I am Sandy Roberts, your Makerspace Coordinator with the Warren County Library System. Thank you so much for joining me despite all the crazy technical issues today. I will see you again next week at 2 p.m. for Friday Steam, and I will see you on Monday at 2 p.m. for Maker Monday. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy. We miss you, and we'll see you soon.